At my own daughter's wedding, she said into the microphone, her voice sweet as cake frosting, I used to dream of having a different father. I felt the fork slip from my hand. The room froze. The band stopped mid-note. Laughter died in stiff throats. My ex-husband's face didn't move, not even a twitch. The world made a small, sharp sound inside my chest, like a glass cracking. So I stood, I slipped my shawl from my shoulders, and I left. I did not look back to see if he watched me go, because I already knew. He never watched me when it mattered. That was part of the pattern. He watched to punish, not to understand. Out in the hall, the loudest thing was my heart. The hotel had polished mirrors, a wall of orchids, air cold as an apology. My hands shook. My lipstick left a red half-moon on the napkin I'd carried like a shield. I set it on the console table like a tiny flag of surrender, and then I pulled my phone from my purse, opened a message labeled Bluebird, and pressed one button, schedule send. Midnight. The fuse I'd set months ago. Lit at last. I told myself I wasn't ruining her day. That was what had kept me silent for years. Don't ruin anything. Don't make a scene. Don't give him what he wants. Another reason to call me crazy, dramatic, a storm in a dress. But there is a difference between making a scene and making a choice. There is a difference between breaking something and ending something. I walked toward the back stairs and started down. My heels found the rhythm. I thought of my daughter as a baby, bones soft like bread, her feet pushing against my palms. I thought of her first school play. The way she searched the crowd and found him, always him. Because he sat in the front row with flowers and a smile wide as a billboard. And I sat in the back with a bruise under my sleeve. Do you want the truth? The truth is not dramatic. The truth is slow. It is tea you keep reheating and never finish. It is a wall you lean against out of habit. It is the way lies wear themselves into the shape of furniture. When I first met him, he smelled like peppermint and new paint. He said I had eyes like winter. He said a lot of things. He said them so smoothly that even I, who knew the taste of old pain on my tongue, swallowed them whole. He brought tulips when he came to pick me up. Red ones. I still remember because I kept them even after they turned black at the edges and stained the glass. My mother told me to throw them out. I thought it was romantic that something so pretty could rot. The first time he raised his voice, it was because I laughed too loud at a joke another man told. It was at his friend's birthday party. He squeezed my wrist under the table and said, in a voice only I could hear, "Do you want people to think you're easy?" I became quiet for the rest of the night. When we got home, he was sorry. He pressed my hand to his heart. "You're not like anyone else," he said. "I just don't want to lose you." I learned that sorry was a door he opened when he wanted me to step back inside. My daughter came a year into the marriage. She was early. She came whimpering like a bird that fell from a nest. I held her and every bad thing in the world grew quiet. I did not know how much noise he could make when he wanted to be the loudest love in the room. The night I came home from the hospital, he cooked spaghetti and set the table for 3. He poured himself wine and poured me water and said, "To our family." He put his hand on my shoulder and squeezed too hard. Later, when the baby cried and I was slow to move because my body felt full of broken glass, he stood in the dark doorway with his arms crossed. "She's hungry," he said. "She needs attention." His tone said a mother should not sleep. His tone said I owed him something just for being who he was. "I won't count the years for you. You would get bored like people do when pain has no drums to it, no sirens. I will tell you about the night of the jam jar. It was winter. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon. My daughter was 5. I had made toast and she wanted more jam. He yanked the jar from my hands and it slipped. It shattered. He stepped forward and said, "Look what you made me do." Red everywhere, like blood, but it was raspberry seeds and sugar. I got down on my knees and picked up glass, one piece at a time, with my bare hands. My daughter watched from her chair, eyes wide as coins. He left the room whistling. In the years that followed, I learned to say, "I'm fine," in 10 different tones. I tucked apologies into every crease of the house the way other women nest lavender. I hid money in the lining of my winter coat. I hid fear in the corners of my mouth. He worked in property. He liked to say he built things. He liked to stand on new floors and spread his arms like a king. He had a ring of keys and he thought they were a crown. I found a difference between gentle and polite. Gentle is breaking bad news slowly. Polite is smiling while you cut someone off at the knees. He was polite to the world and unkind to me. And the worst part was the way he held our daughter between us like a pane of glass. Every decision became a choice you could see through. Choose me and get her, choose yourself and watch her slip away. Have you ever bitten your tongue so hard you taste blood? I did it at parent-teacher conferences. I did it during school plays. I did it when she was 10 and came home with a new pair of ballet slippers and said, "Daddy says Mommy spends money she doesn't have." I did it when she was 12 and shut her bedroom door in my face and said, "Daddy says you don't know how to be kind." The language of a house falls into the hush of the one who wins. Then came the custody papers. The concerns, the episodes. Postpartum. They called it in the paperwork, 6 years after the baby. He had a folder of text messages I didn't send, emails cut and pasted and printed with my name. He had a psychiatrist's note from someone I met once. He had witnesses who were paid in favors and parties. He had a mother with a black hat at the hearing and a Bible in her lap. My lawyer was too polite. The judge was his old tennis buddy. The courtroom smelled like lemon oil and something else, money and certainty. I lost Thursday to Sunday every week. Then every other week. Then 3 days a month. He was generous with holidays and stingy with the hours in between. She needs stability, he said. Meaning she needed him. Meaning I could have her in small, supervised portions, like dessert. If you're waiting for the part where I left, then I wish I could give it to you. I stayed. I moved into an apartment with thin walls. I bought cheap furniture and told myself the wobble was charming. I learned the schedule of the bus routes and my loneliness. I worked in a florist shop, cutting stems at an angle, the way my boss taught me, and I stopped keeping the dead tulips in water. I told my daughter she was my favorite person. I whispered it into a phone that sometimes went to voicemail. Sometimes to a black hole. Daddy says you're trying to take me away from him, she said when she was 16. Her voice low, her words hitting my chest like a fist. Daddy says you're selfish. Do you know what it's like when your child says words you know were put in her mouth by someone else? It's a magic trick gone wrong. She sees the ring vanish. You see the trapdoor open. You both clap because what else can you do? I saved things I did not know I would need. I saved a voicemail from the night he forgot to pick her up from the theater and called me threatening because I asked where she was. He called me names I will not repeat here. He slurred. I kept the call. I saved a receipt from the night he bought a suit at midnight and put the purchase on our joint card even though the divorce papers were signed by then. I saved a text where he wrote the name of a charity that would later show up as a hole in his company's accounts. I saved an email from his assistant where she accidentally attached a spreadsheet showing who was paid off. She apologized 2 minutes later and begged me to delete. I didn't doubt I was not a planner before him. He made me one. He turned me from a woman into a filing cabinet. Eventually, the drawers stopped rattling and started closing with a smooth click. I became careful like a clock. So when I tell you that I pressed a button in a hallway during my daughter's wedding. Know this, I had been building that button for years. He walked into that ballroom like he walked into every room, sure it would shape itself around him. His tie was a shade of navy that suggested trust. His hair was paid for. His smile was on loan. He sat at the father's table, back straight, hand on his new wife's knee. I sat at a table near the back with coworkers and a cousin of the groom. I did not begrudge the seating. I did not want to be near him. He turned once, saw me, and nodded. The nod you give to a stray you fed once, and then my girl stood with a microphone and said she had dreamed of a different father who dreamed. That word nestled under my ribs like a bird looking for a place to rest. I knew how dangerous dreams can be when you say them out loud. I knew he would make her pay. Not in public, no, he was too careful for that, but later, when the photos were done and the dress was unzipped and the house was quiet and he could step into the role of concerned parent. He would ask why she would humiliate him. He would twist her words into knots and tie them around her throat. He would remind her of his generosity. He would remind her of me. He would say, "You are becoming like your mother." He would make those words a curse. So I left. I did not want to be a target he could point at while he made his daughter feel small. I wanted to be a shadow he could not strike. Downstairs, in the small hotel business center with a printer that groaned like an old dog, I sat. My bag, the blue velvet one my grandmother gave me, was on my lap. I opened it. Inside were 6 envelopes, a flash drive, a spare wedding program, lipstick, and a paper heart my daughter made in 2nd grade. Inside the heart, to Mom. You are my brave. I typed in the code Nora and I had agreed on. Nora was his assistant. 29. Sharp as a pin. Patient as winter. He thought he had broken her, but he only bent her to a shape that let her slide under doors. She had come to me in a parking lot outside her gym. He asked me to lie, she said. I can't sleep. She handed me a thumb drive and a coffee cup lid. Don't text me. Write me letters. Old school. I will reply with postcards of cities I haven't visited. Read the postmarks. We made a plan made of paper and breath. Bluebird was the file with everything. The voices he forgot were recorded. The pictures he thought were deleted. The ledger entries with neat columns and mess in the margins. The donations that circled back around like a trick. The accountant he had fired for asking one question too many. The whistleblower report that got buried under a fundraiser for a children's hospital. Because he understood optics and nothing about children, and the Ring camera footage from the night he dragged a suitcase down the stairs and didn't know the small light above the door was watching. I was not in the frame. But you could hear my voice from the kitchen, steady as a metronome. Don't wake our daughter, I said. Please. And you could hear his answer and the slam and the glass lilting like chimes. And then quiet. Proof not of the worst. Just proof of the always. I did not put the worst in Bluebird. I did not need to show the worst to prove the truth. Bluebird was scheduled for midnight to send itself to every board member of his company. To a journalist who had once held my hand while I told her there were other women like me. To the state attorney who owed me nothing and knew everything, to his mother, to his pastor. To the woman he called Nora 2.0 in a birthday text because he wanted a fresh one. And to my daughter, who would be at her hotel by then, dress in a heap on a chair, makeup pink around her eyes like she had rubbed them hard, the way she did when she was small, but that was not all. I had asked the wedding planner to show a slideshow near the end of the night, the family memories, the thing with the baby pictures and the slow music. I insisted all photos be provided to me ahead of time to make sure they're flattering. I said it with a smile so sweet it hurt my teeth. The planner agreed. And I, in turn, agreed to the groom's mother adding shots of their vacations and the time he had a broken arm from falling off a houseboat. I made the file. It was a file you would want to watch. At minute 4, slide 19, the file would appear to freeze. Then a different video would play, one I had set like a bone, not the Ring camera. Not yet. It would open on a picture of a tulip, red and black at the edges. It would say, some flowers look pretty when they rot. Then it would show numbers. Then names. Then voices with answers they thought were whispers. The code to that file was the one I type now, in a room where the wallpaper tried to look like linen. I felt the old fear touch the back of my neck. I breathed. I considered undoing everything. I considered staying small, like I had trained myself to be, but then I thought of my daughter at the microphone. The way her voice shook not from weakness but from the weight of the truth inside it. I thought of the night she whispered to me, sometimes when Dad hugs me, it feels like he's hugging the idea of me, not me. And I pressed enter. Do you want to know what it felt like? Like the first time you unclench your jaw and realize your whole body was made of fist. The tightness left me and I felt empty for a second, and then I felt full. Full of breath. Full of space. Full of a future where my name was not only the echo of a warning. I went back upstairs. I stood outside the ballroom doors. I could hear the band again. Someone was laughing too loud. Someone was sobbing in the women's room. A man told a joke about marriage that was not funny at all. The ocean of it all kept doing what oceans do, moving even if you don't. I peeked inside. My ex-husband was standing, clapping at something, eyes flicking to everyone like he owned them and inventory was due. The groom kissed my daughter's hand, and she smiled, but there was a sandstorm behind her eyes. The DJ announced the slideshow. My throat closed. I turned away. I could not watch. Not because I was scared for him. Because I was scared for her. I wanted to catch her. I wanted to catch the hurt before it hit. The door swung shut behind me with a quiet click. I in the long hallway, with a bay window showing the lit pool and a sky full of shy stars, I waited. I told myself I would stay out here and listen for footsteps. I would be here if she came running. I would not go, no matter the fear of what came next. I timed my breath to the second hand on my watch. It was my father's watch. He was the only man in my life who kept time like a promise. He died before I married. He would have hated my ex. He would have sat him down and told him a story about mending fences and the cost of wood, which is to say, he would have warned him kindness comes with receipts. Sometimes I imagine telling my father what I did. He leans back in his old chair and nods. About time, kid, he says. About damn time. A minute later, I heard it. Not a scream. Not a gasp. The sound a room makes when a curtain drops too fast. The hush with a pulse. The silence of 100 people swallowing at once. Then the sound of my ex-husband's voice, loud and calm, the way he sounds when he's lying. "There's been a mistake," he said. "Turn it off." Then the wedding planner's voice with too much sugar in it, "I'm trying." And then another voice, my daughter's. "Let it play," she said. "Let it play." I thought my knees would give. They didn't. They locked. I stood like the statue that woman in his mother's backyard had, the one with the bird on her shoulder. I thought of all the times I had wished for someone to say, "Let it play," when I tried to tell the truth. I thought of all the times I had stopped myself because the truth was ugly and I had taught myself to be pretty. I did not see the footage. I did not need to. I know it by heart. I heard voices through the door. Names. Dates. The laugh of a man too sure of himself to think anyone would ever string his words together and make a noose. Someone exhaled a "wow." Someone whispered, "I knew." Someone else said, "No, you didn't," and that made me laugh a little. A bitter little sound that turned into a sob. I swallowed. The door opened and Nora slipped out, eyes bright, cheeks flushed. She saw me and shook her head a tiny fraction. Not in don't, but in wonder. "He's gone white," she whispered. "He tried to pull the plug. The DJ's booth is password. You thought of that?" She looked at me like I was both a war and a song. "You deserve to see this." "I can't," I whispered. "Is she?" "She's sitting," Nora said. Her husband is holding her hand. She is shaking, but not with fear. With rage. She took my hand, squeezed it. "You did this right. You did not cut her. You cut him." Behind her, like a wave, voices rose and fell. Shoes scuffed. Glass clinked. The band started a song and then stopped. Someone cursed. Someone said, "Call someone." Which someone, I wondered. The police? A friend who could fix it? A lawyer who would say, "Shut up and sit down"? I heard my ex speak again, this time a little less sure. "This is a personal matter," he said. It always was, for him. Personal meant private. Private meant hidden. Hidden meant safe for the guilty, and then my daughter's voice again. "Nothing about my life with you was ever personal," she said. "It was performance. This is the first honest thing you've given me, evidence." I put my hand over my mouth to keep the sound in. The sound wanted to be a cry and a laugh and a prayer all at once. Bluebird flew at midnight. My phone buzzed like a trapped bee. Email sent. The journalist wrote back a single word, "Finally." The state attorney's office autoreply said, "We have received your submission." The board member's addresses bounced a few times, then sank in. His mother's email sent me a bounce. She had been using his assistant's inbox. Interesting. I sent again, to her church address. The one hidden behind the newsletter for the bake sale. That I stood in that hallway while the truth poured into the room like light through a tear in a curtain. I waited for my daughter like a hound. I would have waited all night. She came out not long after. Her veil was off. Her eyes were bare. She saw me. We stopped a few feet apart, because there are distances you practice and it takes a second to unlearn them. For a beat, we did not speak. All the words were hot and bright and heavy. All the words would burn if we touched them too soon. Then she reached for me. Not like a daughter reaching for a mother. Like a person reaching for a person she didn't know she had been missing in a way that left a hole in her shape. I went to her. I put my hands on her face. Her skin was damp. "I'm here," I said. "I am here." "I know," she said, and broke. The sound she made was not pretty. Crying rarely is. It was the kind of sound you make when you pull a thorn out that has been in too long and the flesh has grown around it. I held her and was the basin that caught it. I let it splash. I did not shush. I did not say, "It's okay." I said, "Let it be not okay for a minute." Footsteps approached. The groom stood in the doorway, watching like he was standing on a ship. He nodded to me, and in his nod was a history of fathers who did not make their sons small to stand tall. One day, I would tell him thank you. Tonight, he only said, "The police are here." I looked at my daughter. "Do you want me with you?" She nodded. "Please," she said. "God, Mom. Please." We walked in together. People looked and then looked away, which is what people do when they are about to learn who they are. My ex sat in a chair like a king without a throne. His hand gripped his phone so hard his knuckles were chalk. He looked up and saw us and I watched his eyes flit from me to her and back, calculating. He had always liked numbers. He tried a smile. He fashioned it quickly, like a man tying a tie in a moving car. Think about the optics, he said, voice low, as if we were conspirators. He always thought I would return to the fold while the fire burned. This is her wedding. My daughter laughed, not like a woman but like a girl who just remembered she was someone else first. This is my life, she said. And you put your fingerprints on every inch of it. Today I get to see the mess. Tomorrow I get to start cleaning. The officers spoke with the calm of people who see mess for a living. They asked questions. The wedding planner cried quietly, then put on a brave face and began slicing cake because weddings have scripts and she was not about to let this one go off book. The band played low, like words under breath. Aunties gathered in corners to whisper. His mother clutched her Bible in a way that made me think of the tulip again. She glared at me as if I had had the nerve to point at the rot so she could no longer call it a bruise. He left with his lawyer around 1 a.m. Not arrested. Life rarely gives you the clean ending right when you want it, but sweating. Ear red from the phone pressed too hard, jaw jumping. A man who had spent a lifetime thinking gravity was his loyal servant, surprised to learn it worked on him too. I went home that night and sat at my small wooden table and drank tea that tasted like dust. I looked around at the things I had chosen. The lamp my neighbor gave me, the plant that refused to measure itself by the size of the pot. My phone buzzed and buzzed. I did not answer the numbers I did not know. I answered one, at dawn. Mom? She said, voice stripped of its grown-up coat. Can you come over? I don't know where to put all this. I went. I have always gone when she called. The difference now was she called for me. We sat in her kitchen with the sunlight finding our faces and made a plan. Not a plan of revenge. A plan of maintenance. I told her how to block his number and still keep records. I told her to speak to a therapist who was not on his holiday card list. I told her to let herself grieve the father she wished for, the different father she had dreamed. I told her it was not a betrayal to see people as they are. It was the beginning of love. A bluebird did its work. The board did not shake then stand firm. It crumbled. Nora found a new job. She sent me a postcard from a city that matched the postmark. The state attorney called me a week later and asked me to come in. I sat in a room with gray carpet and told a story with the calm of a surgeon. I did not enjoy it. I did not perform. I simply laid facts on the table like bones and asked the room to look at the shape they made. MYX stopped calling me. He started calling lawyers. He told the paper it was a smear, a grievance project. The paper used the word embattled. I hated that word. It made everything sound like a chess game. This was not a game. This was a way someone lived inside someone else's story until she set fire to the paper it was written on. His mother sent letters full of God and guilt. Family is family, she wrote. I wrote back, family is what you do, not what you call it. I did not mail the letter. I burned it in the sink. Months passed. Life, stubborn, kept on. I planted tomatoes on the balcony. I went to the movies alone and bought the big popcorn because I decided I did not have to be small anywhere. I kept a space on my bookshelf for a photo that did not exist yet, my daughter and me. Not posed, not proof of anything, just a moment caught. One afternoon. I came home and found her sitting on my stoop. Knees tucked up, hair in a knot she had always worn as a girl. Do you have time for a walk? She asked. We walked to the lake where we used to feed ducks. The ducks were gone, replaced by a sign that said don't because people had been too kind and made the ducks sick. She laughed at that. Too much of the wrong kind of kindness, she said. We sat on a bench. She took my hand. I said I dreamed of a different father, she said. What I meant was, I dreamed of a different childhood. I know, I said. Me too. And I did. Do you think mothers don't want the childhood bright as chalk on a sidewalk? We do. We want it so bad we will paint over the cracks. Until we can't. Until we decide the cracks can be mended if we stop pretending the sidewalk is fine. She asked me why I waited until her wedding. It is a fair question. One that kept me awake in the parts of the night that are thin as skin. Because you were safe, I said. Legally, financially, emotionally. He had less room to twist. And because you said the word dream out loud. You opened a window. I pushed. She nodded. Mom, she said, I used to think you were weak. She looked at me with eyes that did not slide off. I was wrong. You were quiet. That's not the same. I wanted to say, I was weak, I was strong, I was a woman in a house with a man who taught me that strength looks like silence. But I let her have the sentence. It was hers to give. The case wound on. The words fraud and assault and tampering entered rooms they had not been in before. He stopped showing up at restaurants. He stopped getting the good tables. He learned what it was like to call and have the call go to voicemail and remain there, floating. "Everything's a misunderstanding," he said when a reporter stuck a microphone in his face. "My daughter is confused." She responded by posting a photo of a tulip, red and black at the edges, and the caption, "Some flowers look pretty when they rot." She did not tag him. She did not need to. Revenge is a sharp word. Justice is a dull one. Healing is messy. People like clean lines and movie endings. Life does not often give them. "Here is what I got: money he owed me that had been turned into a maze routed back." An apology in a statement crafted by his publicist that did not use the word sorry and did not put his mouth on the word harm. An email from an old neighbor who said, "I knew something was wrong but didn't know what to do." I wrote back, "You know now." Here is what else I got: a daughter who calls to tell me when the sky is beautiful. A plant I cannot keep from blooming no matter how many times I forget to turn it toward the sun. A night once a month where I cook pasta and we eat it with our fingers and laugh until we cough. A husband? No. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Freedom tastes better in my mouth than any vow could right now. Does he hate me? Yes. I suppose he thinks of me in the snarled hours and sharpens his remembrances like knives. He will call me vindictive, unstable, a scorned wife. He will die calling me those names rather than say my first name like it is a person. That is not my problem anymore. If you came here for a happy ending, this is what I can give you, a true one. My daughter sent me a photo yesterday of her leaning over a sink, washing strawberries. The light hit her hair like a blessing. Her caption said, "Home." I did not ask if she meant the place or the feeling. I knew. Sometimes I walk past wedding shops and the mannequins look at me with their headless grace. I press my hand to the glass and wish the dress as well. I wish every woman inside them a voice that does not wobble when it is time to use it. I wish them a friend in a parking lot who will pass a thumb drive and a coffee lid when things get bad. I wish them a daughter who, if she must say the word dream in a room full of people, will be met with the kind of silence that means people are listening, not waiting to speak. At my daughter's wedding, she said she had dreamed of having a different father. So I left and lit the match I had been holding in my mouth for years. I watched the smoke rise and did not flinch. I learned that sometimes you leave. Not because you are running away but because you are finally walking toward something. If you ever find yourself standing in a hallway with your heart a fist and your finger on a button, I hope you have someone on the other side of the door who will say, "Let it play." And I hope that someone is you. When the phone rings now, it is my daughter, asking, "Do you have plans tonight?" Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't. Either way, I answer. I always answer. She laughs and adds, "Come over. I made too much soup." We eat on the floor. We talk about nothing and everything. We cry when we need to. We do not whisper. We say our words out loud, even when they wobble. This is the ending I can give you, not a neat bow. Not a judge's gavel. Not a public ruin. The world rarely claps when a woman saves herself. It is quiet, and that is fine by me. Quiet used to be the sound of fear. Now it is the space where I keep my joy. I think about tulips sometimes. How they keep growing after they are cut. How they nod and sway and knock things over if you put them in a vase that is too short. I keep them on my table, wild and a little rude. When they begin to blacken at the edges, I do not keep them for romance or rot. I say, "Thank you," and throw them away, and then I go out and buy new ones. I trim the stems at an angle. I fill the vase with clean water. I set them where the light lands. My daughter opens the door without knocking now. She sees the flowers and smiles. "They're yours," she says. "They look like you." We sit, we talk, we don't look over our shoulders. Somewhere a man is telling a story about a woman who ruined his life. I tell a different one to anyone who asks. A woman who left a room and pressed a button and found she was still there when the dust cleared. Steady on her feet, hands open, ready to hold what was hers. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story.